Verbal reprimand for his behavior. Jill, I love the way you've been paying attention all morning. What'd Jill get? Praise for behavior, okay. And those are the 5 things we give as teachers pretty frequently. We'll go into classrooms and we'll look at this. This is the situation. You'll get some kids whose desks look like this. Is that helpful? We don't know anything about that kid. Some kids' desks who look like this. Lots of opportunities to respond, maybe a lot of praise, a couple of reprimands. Not bad, right? Then you get Russell. In 20 minutes, he got 12 reprimands. He got 3 opportunities to respond. He was wrong twice. What does this tell us?
You never got praise.
All right. Yeah, if you're sitting there, you're kind of thinking, well, he probably wants this. What's he getting here? Attention. So Mike, is he going to stop this because I'm attending to him? No, he's not going to all of a sudden go, oh, the 13th time. Now I get it, Jill. You don't like it when I do this. Jeez, I didn't know that. All right? 15th time? 20th time? 96th time? It's not working. Is the teacher working? Yeah, if I'm stopping teaching every 2 minutes to deal with this kid, I'm putting a lot of effort into a task that's not working. Okay? So what we want to do is give teachers ways to begin to look at what's going on. What I want you to do is at your table, take the case study for Matthew Kane. And you can start to read the front page, forget the second page, that's just an introduction to this tool. Then you're going to look at the tool. You're going to see some of the kinds of graphs that we just had up here. You don't have to pay attention to all of it, just kind of go through it as a group and kind of look and see what you can make sense out of. Time is going much faster than I anticipated, so we won't have a chance to go through this. You have a couple of interviews with teachers. You've got one of those sheets where it's all drawn out for the classroom. You can see the classroom, and Russell or Matthew happens to be the kid who's circled here. Okay? I want you to look through this, and I want you to try to make as much sense out of Matthew's behavior as you possibly can. Take about 15 minutes or so, see what you can figure out about Matthew. I want you to, as a group, a couple of tables together, tell me as much about Matthew as you possibly can. Also tell me about Matthew's classroom, his teacher, the social context, things that might be impacting his behavior. Very first page. Anything there hit you as issues that you kind of say, I better put this down somewhere. This could be something to think about as we look at this kid's behavior, the function of the behavior, or issues related to intervention.
Students learning to blame others from his parents.
Okay, so one of the issues that we don't have parental support here, do we, in terms of what's going on? And there might be he may even be getting some formal or informal support for his inappropriate behavior by home. Does that ever happen? Sure, okay. Why might the home be doing this? Anything that the school might be doing that could have led to this? No, schools are perfect, right? If you had a child who had ADHD, what do you think your child would experience most at school? Think of a preschooler with ADHD. What do you think he's going to hear a lot from his teachers?
No, you can't do that.
No, sit up, pay attention, stop doing that, do this, don't do that. You know what one of the number one comorbid disorders is with ADHD? Oppositional defiant behavior. We are now finding that we play probably a major role in the development of that comorbid disorder because we try to punish children out of their ADHD. Right? This kid is not doing this to make your Thursdays difficult. So this teacher has probably, or the parent has probably learned a long time ago, this school is not giving my kid a fair shake. So guess what? I've got to join forces to protect my kid. Now what you end up with is a completely dysfunctional interaction between parent, school, and child. Okay, so that's going to be a problem. Anything else on this front page tells you there might be a problem? Or things that you might want to look at as good or different and different? Okay, just had a change of medications, all right? How many of you have had the teacher that kind of like, ADHD, whatever, it needs medication. That's the problem, give them medications, life will be good. Right? Approximately 1/3 of children with ADHD do not respond to medication at all. Another third, roughly, will respond to a medication for a short period of time and then need a new medication. And there's only about a third of kids who actually respond to medication the way we think it all works. And even that, the situation is that oftentimes parents are the ones who talk to the doctors about the medication, and they don't know that what we're trying to do is increase their ability to attend. They think they want to get the behavior under control, and they end up over-medicating their child.
The fact that he has 2 classes that he does well and he doesn't have any behavior.
Okay. Yeah, why is that important?
Well, because that's kind of the key to the answer. What's going on there is not very.
Okay, yeah, I might want to look at that real carefully, right? And this is not a new pattern. He usually picks a couple that he does all right in. What's going on there? Okay, anything else you're seeing that may be exciting?
The reinforcer's not meeting the function necessarily.
Okay, yeah, and what is it? Is there anything there about external reinforcers as far as tangibles?
It sounds like they're very tangible, but things that he could purchase himself.
Yeah, it doesn't look like this is going to be a kid who tangible reinforcers is going to mean much to anyhow. This kid has lots of means to get tangible reinforcers. So the violation of the fact that this is a scarcity. This kid can buy and sell the tangible reinforcers most teachers can provide. So that's probably taking that off the table. Even if it did meet the function, it's probably not going to be all that terribly effective. Okay, somebody else? Yeah.
Well, he's 8th grade, so you have the onset of adolescence.
Okay.
There's normal, typical increase in rude and disrespectful behavior. That's just normal adolescent development.
Okay.
And you have that mixed with somebody who's ADHD, it's going to be doing talk-outs normally. So you're just experiencing normal behavior, normal development, both personally and socially. That's just normal.
Yeah. So you've got this normal development, the hormones, and those frontal lobes being developed, right? Where the kids are going to try, I want to try this on my own now. I'm going to use my judgment. Right? Yeah, this is going to be fun. Okay. Anything else happening? Yeah. Okay. He's had a hard time taking responsibility, doesn't he? Okay. Now, if I got a kid who's having a hard time taking responsibility, what might that tell me I've got to be somewhat cautious about? I probably want to make sure that my consequences aren't so powerfully punitive that it doesn't make sense for the kid to want to take responsibility. I want to start having some consequences that probably make a lot of sense and aren't so terribly painful that he's not going to take responsibility, because I want to build that it's good to take responsibility. All right? Anything else going on? Okay, he wants to be part of a peer group. He seems to like peer groups, but he's having some problems with that, right? So that might tell me, gee, kind of keep that peers might be an issue. That might be one of those things I want to look at to say, do peers and peer attraction or attention play a role here? Get your hand up.
Well, I was just thinking the school district met on reading and math, but that's not really good enough for this school district.
Okay.
We exceed level.
Yeah, and boy, I'll tell you, one of the things I'm seeing, at least in my work with schools, is that we have triggered the anxiety disorders in kids like crazy with No Child Left Behind.
I think this is almost sort of, the school personnel are also frustrated with the whole thing with the parents and everybody, because it's all just frivolous legal action.
Right.
I think they're getting so frustrated too. Not only are they having to deal with the child acting out, but now they have to deal with the parents acting out.
Right.
They're just making life overall difficult.
Yeah, so deterioration between those relationships. That's going to, and if you were the person all of a sudden called in as a behavior specialist or whatever in a situation like this, you're kind of going, oh, are we having fun now? Okay, because somehow you're going to have to come between all this, right? All right, turn to that next page on general information. Just kind of glancing down there. Anything hit you as particularly interesting issues, either good, bad, or indifferent as you look at that? This just kind of talks about the classroom a little bit. Okay, he keeps coming, doesn't he? All right, that's your typical Russells. By God, those kids are never not there, right? It's like, God, please stay home. Okay.
An ADHD kid, and he's in a classroom that's really chaotic.
Okay.
Everything's just all over the place, and that just sort of exacerbates his.
Okay. Yeah, and we've got a teacher who herself seems to have a little disorganization, or himself. I can't remember who the teacher is here. In terms of finding stuff and those kinds of things can be kind of a problem, right? Anything else?
Fluorescent lighting.
Fluorescent lighting could be a problem, right? Yeah. Okay. Any other things? All right, if you look at the next page, we're going to look at, this is kind of rules. Are there rules? Are they posted? Are they consistently followed? All right, taking some information here. What do you see going on here? No clear rules being stated. Consequences are pretty unpredictable in terms of what's going on. Is this good for a kid with ADHD? No. And oftentimes you get parents going, but my kid has ADHD, you can't hold him responsible for everything. Actually, they have to have expectations even clearer because they have a hard time putting stuff together. So I need even clearer expectations. I don't need punitive expectations, but I need clear expectations and clear consequences. Okay? Look at the next page, real quickly, instructional style. Basically this is momentary time sampling. This was happened, I think this was done every, it says 1 minute, but I think this was actually done every 3 minutes. So you just put down what it was, whether it was whole group, small group, question answer. What do you see as you look down that?
Mostly lecture and
Okay, mostly lecture out of the text. Okay, that good for a kid with ADHD? Not particularly exciting. Okay, any technology used? No, I had to listen to the teacher talk. So I've got to attend to a person standing up speaking, sort of like what I'm doing here now. Although I do have an overhead projector here, in case you didn't notice this. Would this be good for a kid with ADHD? No, that could be a problem. All right, so you're kind of looking at some of those things. Now let's look at this page with a drawing. We watched for 30 minutes. You've got down here in the box down at the bottom, it kind of tells you what we're looking at. The big box with a few marks, and that's for the whole class. We put one down there because the teacher every now and then can say, will you guys pay attention? Now you all just got a reprimand, even though some of you were paying attention. You just got reprimanded. Or I might say, you guys are doing great today, right? And Amy here has been asleep for half the time, so, she just got praised for something that she didn't do. So, whatever the situation might be, that goes to the whole class. But as you look at that page, anything going on there?
he's getting a lot of attention.
A lot of attention. What for? Okay, inappropriate behavior. What do you mean he's not seated appropriately?
Right in the middle of a bunch of kids sitting all around him doing God knows what. He needs to be a little further up.
Okay, yeah, he might be just a little bit too far away from the teacher in terms of having any proximity control kind of thing, all right? And he might be being influenced by these kids. He also might be the cause of their problems.
If you look at it though, he's actually in the center of the maelstrom. I mean, all the activity in the classroom is pretty much he's right in the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a chaotic person who needs consistency and structure, not so much stimulus, and he had somehow been placed in the middle of the stimulus.
Okay, all right.
He is the stimulus.
Yeah, he could be creating it, but either way, it's responding to him. This is not a particularly good location, all right? Anything else going on?
There's a lot of kids in this class who don't have to do anything.
Okay, yeah, a lot of kids can. Now, again, do you think this is unusual if you go into a classroom and take this kind of information? No, we know that most teachers teach in a T. They teach the students in the front and the students down the middle. You want to be out of the program, you sit where you guys are. Okay, those are pretty safe seats. Right? Those are the cheap seats. Nobody bothers you over there. Okay, you don't want to sit here. You don't want to sit here, right? Okay, I'm not any different than any other teacher. Okay, anything else going on? What's the ratio of praise to reprimand for this kid? You got one praise statement and lots of reprimand. You think he feels good about himself here at school? God, I love this place called school. I can't wait to come tomorrow. Right? What am I going to hear tomorrow?
But if you look at this, the classroom average is, it's pretty high for chances to respond, but it's pretty high also for a lot of verbal, what do you call it? VRBs.
Yeah, verbal reprimand for behavior.
So this teacher's given a lot of verbal reprimands for behavior out.
Yeah. Think that's unusual? Who's the most disruptive person in most classrooms? The teacher. They stop teaching and break the lesson up more than anybody else in the classroom. And I always I love this picture where the person would come over and call on the, could you read the next paragraph? And here's this poor little LD kid, right, kind of going, the teacher goes, would you stay with me? Now I'm just waiting for the kid to go, I would love to if you'd stay with me. You've broken this lesson up 43 times. I don't have a clue where the hell we are. Okay? We tend to be the most disruptive person in the classroom, right? Because we stop teaching to reprimand. Reprimand is the most dumb thing we do. In fact, if I want to predict one thing, going to measure one thing in the fall of the year to see whether the classroom is going to be better or worse, reprimand is the best predictor. Classroom with lots of reprimand in the fall will have even more in the spring, because reprimand is one of these sick little things that work for the short term. Jill, sit up! And she sits up, and I think, God's in his heaven. The problem is she's right back into it in a few minutes, and I'm reprimanding again.
I have a quick story. I am a clinical counselor, and I have an ADHD high school student, and he bounces all the time. Even on fully medicated, he's still bouncing. And his teacher got really fed up with him because he would always talk out during class. And so, 7-page paper on why you can't talk out in class. He took home, wrote 7 pages, font size 24, and basically it said, hopefully this is so will learn not to tell me my 7 pages in the font when I'm going to ADHD. And he gave it to the teacher. Oh my God, he just went that God. They were
Yeah, I always think, that Rick Lavoie talks about the fact that teachers who use rhetorical questions should be, get kids that they answer. How many times do I have to tell you this? 33. Yeah. Okay, on this page. You would sit down with some of your teachers and you had a page like this. You think this would be powerful? Yeah, we've had teachers ask, will you come back in and do this again? Again, teaching is so private, but all of a sudden you can start looking and saying, God, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize this is not a recipe for success. This kid is getting tons of attention for the wrong thing and no attention for the right thing. Now you'll like it, the teacher will go, oh, I'd love to pay attention to her if she would just do something good. Okay. And part of your task then becomes helping them realize I don't have to wait for it to happen, I can actually set it up. Okay. I had a kid one time who was so challenging that the only thing I could think that he could possibly do with a high enough rate to be able for me to praise him was I would call on somebody who was a really good, bright student. So I'd say, Brenda, what do you think? And Brenda would give her answer, and I'd go, Kevin, do you agree? He doesn't even know the question. All I had to do was go, Brenda's smart, always agree with Brenda. Yes! Okay? Good, you're both right. Okay, gave me something to at least start with. Okay? All right, anything else going on here? All right, turn the page over. We got something in terms of task engagement. Now the first 2 bars are this young man, and the other 2 bars are just another child you're picking at random. And you see that they break it down by the task. So each time you switch task, you switch bars. The first one was I have to listen to the teacher lecture about England during the time of Shakespeare. The next one is answering questions about the play and how it relates to modern times and family conflicts. What do you see about his on-task behavior?
Not a whole lot.
15%.
When what?
When he's listening.
When he's listening. How about when he gets a chance to talk and engage? Now it increases. Oftentimes I want to identify things teachers are doing, the things that the kid is doing better on, because it's much easier to get a teacher to do more of something they're already doing than a whole new behavior. So if I can help specify what the child's doing, that's going to help in terms of developing the plan. Okay? Turn the page. Now we've got issues around compliance. All right, we'll just worry about the target kid right now. What do you see with compliance? Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute. We got volunteers first at the bottom of that page. How about his volunteering and opportunities to respond?
Volunteered once.
Volunteered once. Didn't make any sense, did it? Didn't work for him. Was called on once. Didn't get the answer right. There was no consequence. What do you think about this? Any information here?
Why do it if you're not going to get responsibility?
Okay. Yeah, first of all, I got a kid with ADHD. Do I have to make sure I involve this kid in the lesson if I want to have him stay with me? Probably way too low, okay, for one thing. 2 is that the question I asked obviously didn't get it right. Do I want to leave him with an error? Or should I give him another question maybe that he can get right, so I leave him with some positives? Okay, give him some way to get on top of things. All right, look at the next page, compliance. Just look at his behavior. What do you see going on here? Okay, yeah, basically there's no point in complying, there's no point in not complying. He's kind of like the young man that we had up here on the board before. All right. When you look at the next page, the consequence for his target behavior, when he engages in the target behavior of non-compliance, what do we see as the major typical consequence from the teacher?
No consequence.
Nothing. How about when he becomes disruptive? What do we see?
Nothing and laughter.
Getting a lot of nothing, okay? There's a couple of verbal reprimands. Again, anything consistent?
Laughter from the kids.
Laughter from the kids. All right. Now, just on, and then we've got a couple of teacher interviews. We're not going to deal, just from what you've looked at so far, what kind of things are you thinking about when you think about this kid functions for this kid's behavior?
To get some response from somebody so that he feels like he's involved.
Okay. Who's he getting response from?
Right now, kids.
Kids. All right. So part of it is the fact that he does get some response from the kids for inappropriate behavior. Should I keep doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's my consequence from the teacher? Not much. So there's not much cost to this. So this is a pretty free ride for me. All right. There's not much of a reason for me not to do this, and a whole bunch of reason for me to do it. Any other issues going on here?
Not involved.
All right, I'm not involved and I'm not terribly successful academically, so obviously I'm not going to win my place in the peer group by my academic smarts. Okay? All of this kind of fits into, and what we generally do is we'll sit down and we'll say, okay, let's take the first source of data. What did we find out about? Did we find out anything about the context? Anything about setting that makes a difference? What do we think the function was? And you might find 2 or 3 functions. You write them down. Then you go to the second source and you do the same thing. Then the third source, fourth source, and so on. And then you look across and say, okay, am I seeing any patterns here? Anything that's helping me understand this behavior? Because most of the time, not every source is going to tell you the same thing. So what I'm looking for is some sort of overall pattern that helps me understand why this kid is doing something and what am I going to have to do as part of the plan. Now ultimately, I'm going to take that information, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say, okay, what antecedents play a role in here? Are there any setting events or behaviors that serve as antecedents to behavior problems? What about this kid? Do we see anything going on ahead of time that we may have to take into consideration or work with for this kid in terms of what's going on ahead of time? Okay. Yeah, part of the issue is this kid has a hard time attending, okay? So I've got to make sure he's got ADHD. This is a given, okay? I've got to make sure that part of my antecedents is the fact that do I have lessons that have a halfway decent chance of capturing this kid and keeping him involved? All right? So if I see that like long-term lectures, lots of those kind of things, these are problem issues. I've got to try to minimize these or somehow else engage this kid if I have to use those. All right? Anything else in antecedents? Anything else you're seeing with this kid?
The academic expectation, the level of, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say the level of his, where he's at academically and what's being expected of him in the classroom. So the assignments themselves, the content of the assignments themselves.
All right, yeah, can he do it? I mean, the one thing that we had, the only information we've gotten, that's not a whole lot, is that the one question he got, he couldn't get right. Now, maybe he wasn't able to attend to it, but somehow he's not getting a high enough level of correct responding. That's me. That's my only clock. We'll just let it ring. Why don't you people turn your phones on? Why do you know? But the issue in terms of can he compete and can he be effective in terms of what's going on? If I can't, then again that's an issue. I've got to make sure that I've got a chance for him to get a seat on the bus. How about consequences for his behaviors? Oh, do you have something?
I'm just saying, are all the accommodations that are identified?
Okay. Yeah. Look at his IEP. Are we doing anything that we're supposed to be doing? Yeah. Okay. And if you read the interviews, if we had more time to read the interviews, you'll see that one teacher does an awful lot of antecedent kinds of things to set this kid up, and the other teacher's not. Okay? Makes a huge difference. Okay?
That one of the classes where he was successful.
Yes, the one that he's getting the antecedents, things that he's doing quite well in. Yeah.
What I wonder too, it looks like this is a lot of lecture and paying attention to stuff. This is really hard for this kid. So if it was a class where he's making, some kind of box type thing or doing a lab or something
Right.
like that, or can
More hands-on, more peer-based kind of situations, all right? Okay? So part of what you might build into your plan is that one of the things we want to do is to start trying to engage this kid in more of these kinds of things initially, because we're going to see fewer problems. Okay, so part of your plan might be helping teachers understand what are the kinds of things you've got to take into place as you're beginning to build a class for this kid. How about consequences? What do we see about consequences? All right, it's working as far as the peers. I'm getting attention for the behaviors I don't want to see this kid doing. They're effective. What else are we seeing?
He's not getting a lot of attention at all from the teacher.
Yeah, there's not much from the teacher's standpoint that's predictable or meaningful. And quite frankly, most of the time he gets away quite nicely with all the things that he's doing, so there's no cost there. So why should I do anything? There's nothing being done to teach me to do the right thing, and no cost if I do the wrong thing. All right, so I've got an environment that's saying, this probably makes a lot of sense to just keep doing the same stuff I've been doing. Okay? Now, if we could spend all day long teaching this kid to do something different, as long as the environment plays this way, the odds are it's not going to work. Then we want to think about what is the current function of the behavior. So let's look at his issue of being disruptive. What might you say the function of his being disruptive is, based on the little bit of data that you have here? Peer attention, okay? All right, so I need peer attention. What might be an alternative behavior that would allow me to get peer attention? Okay, learning in groups. All right, doing that alone, would that be enough? Okay, what do I have to do? I want peer attention. How are you going to get me peer attention?
Make him the leader.
Okay, can you put me in a situation where all of a sudden I can be some leader? So maybe we're going to do some cross-age peer tutoring where this kid can be the leader.
Are we talking about interventions now, or are we talking about what we want?
I want an alternative behavior. One of the alternative behaviors that we can be looking at. So leadership, I'm just thinking, you're right. Leadership, so leadership, well, what are the behavior you want him to do? What would be things he could do instead to get that peer attention that we could teach him? What are some alternative behaviors?
Well, it says he has social skill deficits, so shouldn't you just do some social skill training?
So one issue we got to put in that piece of antecedents is that this kid's got a skill deficit, doesn't he? He doesn't know what to do when these things happen. That's an important thing to know in the front end. I can't pick the right thing to do if I don't have the idea of what to do. Okay? What might I want him to do instead of being disruptive? Think of and again, you don't. Time is a problem. In terms of the interviews, probably gave you more information. In terms of when he becomes disruptive, is oftentimes when he's being confronted by the teacher. So if I'm coming over here, I'm saying, "Will you get to work?" What's the matter? You're always screwing around. All right, and then he becomes disrespectful and disruptive.
Switch in, no longer make
So
that
that changes
public
the function.
forum.
Okay.
Personal, individual forum.
Okay. That could change the function, right? They could have a dual function, then, couldn't it? Yeah.
Because is at that point, is that triggering, I need peer attention, or is that triggering, I want to avoid you confronting me, or
And it can be both, right?
power of interaction?
Now, he actually gets both of them. Not only can I tell you, screw you and the horse you rode in on, but you guys all think it's cool. Right? So it could have started as one and end up as the other.
Create a lesson for the class where you model the social skills you want him to demonstrate, use him for the class example, and then kind of use him as an example for the next student to encourage peer interaction, where then he leads some of them in this.
Okay.
It's a good spotlight for a while.
Yeah. And actually for example, with ADHD, you get an awful lot of issues around anxiety and frustration and dealing with that. There's a program, for example, called Friends that talks about the fact that part of the intervention is that I teach the kids the strategies. I usually pick a child that's the target behavior and a very, very popular peer colleague. And we teach both of those kids the strategies, and then they go back in and teach the others. So it could be a really powerful intervention for a kid like this because I get the leadership of actually doing it, plus I'm learning the skills. You can do the same kind of thing around some social skill issues and problem solving where I'm actually feeding into both issues. Right? What we want to ultimately come up with, again, you have to figure out a plan to make the goal for the desired behavior and to reduce the undesired behavior. I like to have my behavior intervention plans. Now we'll look at his compliance. Teacher makes a request. Student complies. Yes. What do I want the teacher to do? All right? Student does not comply, what do I want the teacher to do? And I try to make, just like I have that IEP at a glance, I like to have behavior intervention at a glance. Basically, in a one-page document, give me a flow chart. This happens, I do this. This happens, I do this. Then I go, well, how do I go through this? If there are issues I have to put in ahead of time in order to make sure that compliance occurs, I'll put a line going over here and talk about the accommodations that need to be put in place. But now I can look at one sheet as the teacher and say, I got a pretty good idea what's expected of me as I work with this kid. Okay. Same kind of thing around the target behavior and around the alternate behavior.
I think this idea of scanning through the teacher interviews, it seems to me it would be a good idea to do maybe a school-wide in-service on what is ADHD and what behaviors are actually within their control and not within their control. And as a parent of a child with it, definitely you can tell the teachers that think that the students are doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
They mean to do this, they're trying to make that, as opposed to the teachers who understand that sometimes those behaviors are outside of their control. So what can we do to help them keep it in their control?
And especially as they get older and they get that oppositional defiant piece, it becomes very easy for teachers to say, "You little shit," because it's, they're kind of responding to that defiance. And the fact that I've got to take into consideration what's going on. Now, it means being more consistent, means being more prepared, but not as punitive.
I can just say from personal experience, my son knows when a teacher is genuinely cares about him and is engaged in trying to help him, and knows when a teacher does not like him. So if a teacher likes him, he tries extra hard. He does his best. He doesn't always succeed, but he works harder. If he knows the teacher does not like him and thinks that he's a bad kid, he doesn't try at all.
Yeah. And again, there's a mandate that every school is supposed to do an in-service on ADHD every year. I get interesting calls on that too. I'll get a call saying, "Can you do a 15-minute ADHD in-service?" No, I really can't. I'm sorry. But yeah, so that are we sure what's going on? Just you've got the blueprints if you've been here before. If you haven't, there's a website here. I've got a couple of sets of these things here. Basically, it's a situation where you can look up some of the key target behaviors. And so, for example, this one is, let me pick a, it's more kind of fun. Not respecting property or personal space of others. And it will give you examples of the behavior. The page actually folds in half. You open it up and it says, okay, if the student is doing this for adult attention, what things might you consider doing in the front end before the problem occurs? What might you do once the behavior occurs? And what do you want to make sure you never do? What if he's doing it for peer attention? What if he's doing it to escape? And then on the back page, you've got some just website kind of things and some information that can help you. Yes, David?
I've known some people to reward the rest of the class like 5 minutes free time and an hour if they can not pay attention to the negative behaviors.
Right.
What's your thought on that?
I do a lot, actually I do a lot of what is, let's say that the kid is doing something for peer attention. So let's say like this kid who's being disrespectful, or the kid who burps out words or this kind of stuff. What I might do is I've got to pull the peer attention away. That's a hard issue to do. So what I used to do this a lot as a teacher, what I used to say is like, okay guys, I'm going to put up so many marks. Now it was not just for that kid, I would do it for the entire class, even though it really is David's behavior I'm after. If anybody does this, I'm taking a mark away. Now the marks I put up was always a little bit larger than the average number of times David did this. Because he's got to win over half the time with no change in his behavior if he is going to buy into the program. All times I'll go into classrooms and say, oh yeah, if the kid does his homework every day for a month, the curtain C opens up and he can drive the Ferrari home. And we're going, ooh, cool, all right, that's pretty good. How many times has he gotten his homework done in a month? Well, he's never gotten his homework done. It's like, well, yeah, he's not going to drive the Ferrari away. So he's got to win over half the time. So I would put up so many marks, okay? As the kid, all of a sudden you make a comment, I don't have to stop teaching. I go right over and take away a mark. Now I'm not disrupting the classroom. I don't have to stop anything to take away a mark. A little bit later, Jill says something, I take away a mark. A little bit later again, David does it, okay? Now, that's my consequence. If there's any marks up to the end of the class, what I used to do, and I taught high school BD, was that we put our books away, and for the last 5 minutes of class, we engage in a more fun activity. I might have a spongy Nerf ball, throw the ball to you, ask you a question about what we were just talking about. You get it right, you throw the ball to the next student. We might play hangman. We might do Jeopardy. It was still academics, but it was fun. We were going to laugh, we were going to have a good time. If there were no marks left, we just went on with class the way it was. Now I've got a quick and simple consequence. Every time, not a big issue. Just kind of like when a student makes a mistake for 4 plus 4, we don't say put out your hand. If you put down 9, I'm cutting the first finger off. Right? We have a simple consequence. We give it every time. I want to do the same thing for behavior. It's going to be the predictability over time. Let's say I take away a mark and Kevin says, I don't give a shit about your silly marks. What do I do now? Yeah? Well, how about now, Kevin? Huh? No? How about now? No? How about you tell me when you start caring over there? How about now? Who's in charge? Kevin. And Kevin knows it. The class knows it. If I take away 1 mark, just because Kevin says I don't care, does that mean he doesn't care? No. I have to keep in mind that Kevin has a hard time taking responsibility for his behavior. I take away a mark. I've given my consequence. I don't have to jump on him for the next thing. Now, what I do want to do is pay attention to when he does do something well. And I can say, Kevin, you know, I don't talk to you when you go out when school's over. Okay? You know, I know it's hard for you to take responsibility for yourself, but today I corrected you 3 times, and twice you accepted it without saying a word. I'm really proud of you. I think you're growing on this. Now, what might Kevin say?
I don't care.
Blow it out your butt. Absolutely. All right? Just because I'm saying something good doesn't mean the kid's going to go, oh, that's the sweetest thing anybody's ever said to me. Right? And I don't care. My job isn't my job is to give him feedback. He may not know how to take it. Okay? That's part of what we're doing. What you need to do is you're building your intervention plans. Remember what we know about teaching. Take the knowledge we have about how we teach academics and apply it to behavior. Does my intervention teach the desired behavior? Does my intervention give the child a practice to put the new behavior into place? If it's just punishing, you're probably not going to get anywhere. Okay? Does it serve the function, not the form of the behavior? You cannot tell me what you're going to do when I tell you the nature of the behavior. I got a kid who bites. What are you going to do? I don't know. Depends why he's biting. All right? If he's biting because he can't say what he wants to say and that's his only means of communication, that's different than the kid who's biting because he has teething issues. Right? All right. Let me stop and see what questions people have, comments. I know we ran out of time. Issues, comments. Thank you. Fill out your evaluations. If you weren't here before and you want a copy of the blueprints, and you're the first 2 people up here, there's 2 copies.